Apologies. Um, Started live and connection issues. But I wanted to pick up where I left off. For me, again, it was the summer of 2004. I was in my career as a new real estate salesperson at that time, and business was booming. I was earning money. I had my um, referral base built, closing transactions. I was in what I believe to be a good time in my life, in my professional career. And because of that, I did notice that I was attracting the wrong type of attention. It happened during this summer that I had gained a stalker. And this person knew my whereabouts. They knew things about me. They were calling me regularly. I was being faxed pictures of private parts. Just, you look beautiful today, Lanora. You, he knew my day-to-day activities because he told me about them. He shared things with me in terms of the clothes that I was wearing and just activities and people that I was with. I later turned the table because what he didn't know about me was maybe in a former life I was somebody's private detective because I started doing my homework. I started the process of trying to find out who this person was, and I did. I learned that this person was a childhood friend. He was someone who had literally sat on the couch at my parents' home and knew me. Yet he wasn't man enough to ask me on a date. So he was later prosecuted and had to get a restraining order and things of that nature. But I share my story, especially during this time, because the month of September, according to the National Association of Realtors, this month has been designated for Realtor safety. And today, that's what this live is all about. So I wanted to come share my story as well as make this different than any other type of office hours with Lanora that I've ever done, because this one is truly coming from the heart. I want you to go home at night. I want you to see those people that love you, care about you, and want the best for you every day. So if anything you can learn from this episode as well as going forward, I recommend that you take my advice. So let's take a closer look at realtor safety. How many of you knew that right now, well, real estate professionals, I don't know, that are renewing their license, but how many of you knew that right now we're approaching the end of a CE cycle, or a continuing education cycle, for the renewal of broker licenses? I bet there are a few of you that did not know that you can actually take a realtor safety course as a part of your continuing education requirement. You can. And at the Realtors Real Estate School, we offer this in conjunction with the required sexual harassment prevention training. So it's 2 hours of continuing education that you would earn by completing two things that you really, really need: that sexual harassment prevention training and realtor safety course. You can learn more about those options on our website at www.chicagorealtor.com. Just look under the education tab for continuing education, and of course under the broker renewal cycle, since that's what we're under right now, you'll see more information about it. You can learn in that realtor safety course as well, 50 tips in 50 minutes on realtor safety. So today, I just wanted to go over a few of those and share some information as well on ways that you can be safe in your business. According to the National Association of Realtors 2018 member safety report, approximately one-third of the realtors that were surveyed admitted at some point in their career they found themselves in dangerous situations. That's scary. The number is roughly about 38% of those that were surveyed said that something had caused the hair on the back of their neck to rise, or they were subjected to something that they had no plans on being involved in for that day. Real estate professionals are unique in a sense because every day we can present ourselves in such a way where you don't know if we have $2 in our pockets or $2 million in our bank accounts. But it doesn't stop someone from trying to hurt us. The bottom line is real estate professionals can be robbed, they can be assaulted, and unfortunately some of us have been killed just working in this industry. It happens because we are one of the unique professions that every day we work with strangers. And you never know what the mindset of that person is. And we work with those strangers in intimate quarters. They can be a first-time home buyer that's looking to do a showing with us. It could be someone who has asked us to meet them at a vacant home so that we can show that property to them. It could be someone who has asked us to come to their home to appraise it in a sense or give an analysis so that we can list that property for sale. All of those can be deemed activities that we do, but they also can be a setup. It could be, for some of us, the last time that we do this job. I want to make sure that I share with you some stories because attacks and crimes and real estate professionals being victims are increasing every day. And it's important to me, and I'm sure to everybody that you know and love, that you are safe and you at least understand what you're going into, if this is going to be a new career for you, or what you should expect if you're actively already in this industry. So allow me to read some stories that pretty much have become commonplace in a sense. The first story is one that was a case from Tinley Park, which is near us here in Chicago. This specific broker was working an open house, and this occurred last year in 2019. She was a female broker. She was alone in a house with a prospect, and his name was Stanley Keller. Stanley was 50 years old. He was an ex-con. Keller asked the female broker to show him the upstairs bedroom, the basement, and the garage. As she was leading the tour, she told police her body began vibrating as she was having trouble speaking. That was the hair on the back of her neck rising. When she turned to face Keller, she saw he was pointing a stun gun at her. After a struggle, she was able to escape and flag down police for help. When the police arrived, they found Keller sitting in his car with the stun gun and a contraceptive because he was apparently planning to rape her. He was arrested and charged with the attempted aggravated criminal sexual assault. Another story and case occurred back in December 2018, and it was in Maryland. A Maryland real estate agent whose name was Stephen B. Wilson, who was 33, was working out of a model home in a residential development. After being shot by suspect Dylan Augustiniak, who was 18 years of age, Wilson was able to call 911, but the dispatcher only heard heavy breathing followed by someone asking questions. Where's the money? Who are you talking to? When the police and the paramedics arrived, they discovered Wilson was shot dead. It took 30 hours for them to arrest this person. He was, at that point, he had sold the real estate broker's cell phone, and he was attempting to sell the rifle that he used to shoot him with. He was charged with first-degree murder and armed robbery. In Salt Lake City, David Stokey, a real estate agent and landlord, was gunned down while trying to evict two tenants from a property he owned. He rented the apartment to Jessica Miller, who was having hard economic times. Stokey rented the apartment to her because he felt sorry for her. Eventually, Miller and a person she lived with, Mr. Manuel Velasquez, fell behind on their rent payments, and the landlord was forced to evict them. When he arrived to begin the process, Velasquez shot him multiple times and then stuffed his body in a crawl space. The alleged shooter was charged with murder, obstruction of justice, firearm possession by a restricted individual, and discharge of a firearm. Prior to this incident, Velasquez had been charged with attempted murder in one case and with shooting at someone in another. Last but not least, in Elizabeth City, North Carolina, it was the site of another incident involving a man assaulting a female agent. The victim told police she met the man, Nathaniel Jonathan Cox, who was 20 years old, of Fayetteville, North Carolina, at her real estate office, where he explained he was part of a group looking to invest $24 million in the local real estate market. She decided to show him a nearby property and had him follow her in his car. When they arrived, he told her that he was a male porn star wanting to rent a local Airbnb. Then he touched her inappropriately and grabbed her arm repeatedly. When she tried to escape, he blocked her from leaving. When the police arrived, they arrested Cox and charged him with second-degree kidnapping and assault on a female. We can go on and on with stories like these. It's unfortunate that we, as real estate professionals, are open to these types of attacks for thieves, for sexual predators. Unfortunately, for people with mental illness or dependencies or chemical dependencies, we are victims of theirs because they choose to use what they may deem to be an easy target. Let's move ahead, and I hope you remember that I told you about 50 tips in 50 minutes pertaining to that realtor safety course. I'd like to share some of those with you. And in sharing, I'll include some from the course and as well as some that I've just learned over time in this profession that I still love, but it has taught me to be very cautious. I bet you're thinking about some ways that you can protect yourself and save yourself. So some of those ways, let's start with at the office. At the very beginning in one of those stories, it seemed like that agent had done everything right. She met this gentleman at the office. They started a conversation. He admitted to her that he was looking to invest $24 million into the local real estate market. What I did not hear, and I'm not judging her in any way, but we have to follow steps. And those steps are some things that you should do for everyone. And don't let a number or an amount get in your way, because I'm sure that 24 million, she probably was calculating her commissions off of that. Don't count the money first. Do the work first. And part of that work is vetting your potential client. So one of the things that I would say, if you're going to be working and meeting people, especially for the first time, do it at your office. Make sure they come in. You, at that point, you have someone else or multiple people in your office, because something that you might not see, somebody else might see. Did you notice that he was walking around with his hand behind his back, and when you guys turned to leave out, he had a hammer in his hand? You would have never noticed that had you just been trying to go up to the person to greet them. So one thing that I recommend that you do when you meet them at the office is take a photocopy of their ID. And right away, if you use your cell phone, I want you to take a copy of that ID and text or email that ID to someone you trust and someone who will know your whereabouts. Because if you knew this property, had she known this property was right up the street and I was her trusted friend, I would have expected her to send me a copy of his ID and tell me what that address was that she was going to. That way, if something were to happen to her and I had not heard from her at the designated time, because you want to have that set in place too. Hey, if you don't hear from me in 30 minutes, send the cavalry. That's one thing that you can do in your office. Another thing that you can do in your office is something that in my day we call the red file. That is a code. Basically, if you're in trouble, you can simply say, and I'll provide an example. I'm out on a showing with someone that maybe I've shown a couple of properties to, and we're here together at a different showing. And for whatever reason, I'm feeling something iffy about this person, or they're showing me things that don't align with their behavior. I may say, give me 60 seconds. Let my office know that I have a file that I need them to pull because I have another showing that I want to send to you to go on with you, but I can't remember the address. You simply, because all of this will be in place already at your office, you simply call your office main line or someone who you know will answer, and you say to them, hey, can you look on my desk and get the red file and give me the address that's on that red file? Your client or customer will never know that you have just sent an alarm. You've pressed the signal that said send help. That red file, although it's just 2 words, it could mean life or death for someone, because what could potentially be a part of that red file is your calendar, which will show appointment times, who you're meeting with, phone numbers, locations, so that people can backtrack to find where you are. Unfortunately, as a victim of a scenario or a crime that I've talked about so far, your body could be in one of those locations. And it's important. You could be bleeding and needing medical assistance. It's important that somebody knows where you are. That leads to my third point. Let someone know where you are. Let someone know your whereabouts. Have 1 or 2 trusted people that will be available to check in with you or to call you and say, hey, everything okay? I don't recommend that you answer your phone on... Just a moment. I don't recommend that you answer your phone on showings, but I do recommend that if you see a number that's very familiar in that designated person, that you let them know you're in trouble or that you're okay. Either way, let someone know where you are. Let's talk about an open house or a few scenarios that you'll find. Because what I noticed with a lot of my newer licensees or newer brokers, um, you start out working open houses for other brokers in the industry. Here's some common practices that I want you to take into consideration when going on these various different open houses. When you walk in, before you walk in, I want you to park on the street. Never, ever, ever should a real estate professional park in a driveway, a side drive, or anywhere that their car could potentially be blocked. By parking on the street, I can drive on the curb and over on the grass and get away as long as I can get to my car, or I can drive directly out into the street. Even if it causes an accident, you want to get away, and it's important to do that. It's also important that in an open house scenario, you get there and you have someone with you. I don't recommend that anyone in the real estate profession treat an open house or host an open house by themselves. Always have a partner with you. This person doesn't even have to be licensed. It should be someone that you know and trust, that because the numbers would be there, that if push came to shove and you had to fight your way out of that house, they will help you fight. Another thing with open houses, and when I hosted open houses as well, I did this. And I also provided during the Realtor Safety Month, when I practiced to the Chicago Sun-Times, some tips that I used to help me. And one of them, and I have some examples of things, that when you go into a house, I want you to put some things up. And this would be one of those things. It's a butcher-like block with knives. You want to put these types of things away. You want to get to your open house and start putting things away as quickly as possible before you let people in. The reason why you want to do this, because you don't want these weapons to be used against you. It's also important that you speak with your sellers to let them know personal items that you may have. I need you to put those things away. Bank statements, credit cards, jewelry, put them away. And one thing that people oftentimes forget to do is put the medication away. You can have a person that comes in for an open house or even on a showing, and they may say, hey, can I use the bathroom? They're probably going through that bathroom's medicine cabinet. And with the height that we're in right now with opioid addiction, I pronounced it, I'm sorry, opioid addiction, sorry about that. You want to make sure that that medication is not in reach for someone, because unfortunately addicts go to open homes to see, is it vacant? Does someone live there? Is there medication in the medicine cabinet that I can take with me? You want to secure that property as best as you can. Before that first person comes through your open house, just like when we were at the office, you want each and every person to show you identification, valid identification with their picture on it. And you want them to sign in. So what you've done is provided proof that that is that actual person. I would even take my cell phone and take a snapshot of that ID. You want to, as well, at the front door, have something posted at that front door. To enter, you will need to show a valid government-issued ID, and your ID will be scanned, and a signature is required. That's for your protection, as well as the protection of that seller's property. So now that we've talked about at the office and the open house, let's talk about the actual showing. When you're on that showing, I want you to do something even before you get out of your car. Maybe even the day before. I want you to do a test drive of all of the different properties that you will be showing the next day, or maybe a few hours before, whatever. Just do a test run of those properties. It's good, a good common practice to do that, because let's say this is your first time going to this property. You don't know what to expect. You don't know if there's construction or traffic along the way. You don't know if there are people standing in front of the house, or there's a broken window, or the door has been kicked open, the alarm could be going off. You have no idea. But it's important for you to get there and drive around so that you can see for yourself before you are with your client. Again, remember, when you drive, I recommend as well that you have your client take their car and they drive themselves to meet you. Don't put anybody in your car if you can prevent it. You don't know if you're going to potentially be a victim in your own vehicle. That's why it's important that you do the vetting process. Ask your clients, do they have a vehicle, or what mode of transportation will they be using to get to the various showings that there will be going on. Now, let's say that you guys have gone through that whole vetting process and now you're at the actual showing. You, as the real estate professional, probably should get there a little earlier if you can, and then open that property. Don't go in, just open the door. And if there's a lock on that door, like some of the HUD homes, because it could be a foreclosure, you want to take the lock off and you want to close it. Never, ever, ever should you take a lock, a padded lock or some sort, off of a property and just leave it dangling on the door or somewhere where someone could see it. Because what if you're inside of the property and you're walking around showing your client this property, but somebody watched you and your client walk in, and now they know you're in there. They take that same lock you in that house, and find another way to come in to assault you. I've seen it happen. It's unfortunate, but it happens. Also, when you're on these various showings, you want to walk behind your client. I know that everybody gets excited, and especially when you're brand new, you want to show them all the bells and whistles of the house. Trust me, they'll see it. I always made it a practice to never walk into the master bedroom first, because you want them to experience, your client to experience the home. Let them get the first impression and not you. But one of the main reasons why you're walking behind your client is because if they try something, you can take off and run. If you're in front of them, you're at a disadvantage. It's like a big old bear being behind you. What can you do? What can you do? Another common practice of mine, I did my best to never go all the way upstairs in an attic or a basement. Those are areas where you find the most trouble. I leave those spaces for the inspectors, the home inspectors, when they come back. And that's a good time for my client to see that space as well. Oftentimes they want to see the mechanicals in the basement, which is fine. If you're on this showing by yourself, proceed with caution. If you have someone, which I used to do, if I were going on a showing, maybe for the first time or maybe for the first few times, I don't care, all the time, I usually had my brother with me who would wait in the car. Especially me being a female and I was going on a showing where I was only working with men. My brother was always with me. That's for my personal safety. He didn't have to go into the homes and things of that nature with me, but he was there just in case something happened. You might want to have you one of those buddies to tag along with you. Last but not least, the garage, the outdoor spaces. Let's say that you were on this showing and it wasn't even your client, but a perpetrator met you and your client because you guys are in the back looking at the garage or something and attempted to rob you. There is one word that I want you to use, and I want you to scream it to the highest octave that you can get to, and that's fire. I bet you're wondering why I said fire instead of help. I'll tell you why. Think of walking down Michigan Avenue, the Magnificent Mile, and unfortunately, you pass someone that's sitting on the ground and they have a sign up that says help. Sometimes we go over and we place some change or some money in the cup. Other times we simply walk past. That's what someone will probably do when you scream help. People are often like, what was that? Was that real? Or they don't feel the urgency to move when you say help. But when you say fire, they move because they don't know where that fire is. They don't know if that fire is behind them, on the side of them. What was that? What just happened? Folks will drop what they're doing when they hear fire. That's why it's important for you never to scream that unless you absolutely need to. Absolutely need to. So we've talked about the office, meeting your clients for the first time. We've talked about the open house. We've also talked about going on the showings for the first time. Let's talk about the end. Let's talk about ways that you can protect yourself and your client other than physically being in front of them. I've heard stories where clients have been told, or real estate professionals have been told, the title company is calling, and this is just an example, and they want you to wire the money for the closing to a different number. Don't do that. The title company will not be calling you, the real estate professional, or your client. They're not going to call. They're going to provide a secure wire line or transfer line directly to the lending institution and or your attorney. There should never be a reason for you to get involved in the transaction to that degree as a real estate professional. Cyber crimes are huge right now for real estate professionals. So one of the things that I want you to do is to make sure that your virus protection on your computer is updated. Also, make sure that you're changing your passwords regularly and you're complicating those passwords. But of course, you want to make sure you remember the password. Don't jot it down and leave it in an open area where just anyone can find it. You also want to look at protections related to COVID. We can't just worry about if you're going to walk into a property and that property is freshly clean, it looks beautiful. I want you to think of safety across the board. So make sure that you're using gloves. Make sure that your mask that you're wearing, because some of them are cute, but we want you to have those with the double or maybe even triple layers of protection in them. You might want to buy you a box on Amazon or at Walmart or wherever of shoe protectors so that you don't track various things from one property to the next property back to your home. Think safety across the board. I want you to be here. I want you to live. Other things that I think you should take into consideration as a real estate professional, take a self-defense course. Contact your local community center or YMCA, YWCA, all of those, and find out if there is maybe a $25, $50 or free self-defense course that you can get into. Pick up some skill sets that you're not using right now or don't even know you should be using, but ways to protect yourself. Another thing that I want you to take into consideration, I will be doing this myself because I have to get my stuff updated. Take a conceal and carry class. You don't have to own a gun in order to do that, but at least you get yourself in preparation to, if that's what you're considering. I think I saw a statistic that 52% of men and 57% of women realtors carry a self-defense weapon. That self-defense weapon could be anything. I've got some examples. So remember I said you might have to go in a vacant home of some sort. You might have to take some locks off of that vacant home. Self-defense. Don't just look at this as, oh, I just took the lock off. I personally would carry this through the showing. You don't know what you're going to walk into. I have unfortunately been in properties that I've walked in and people were doing everything. And I do mean everything. But I'm not trying to hurt anybody or harm anybody. I just want to go home. Self-defense weapon. Another one that real estate professionals should consider carrying, mace. And this is a higher grade than common practice special mace that you'll find. And I purchased this. You can purchase at Menards, Home Depot, the realtor stores, so on and so forth. But you want to carry something, and mine is on a keychain, and it can be detached from the keychain as well. It has a secure feature. I'm not going to spray it, because if I spray it, it will run everybody up out of my house. Just a little press of this button. But carry stuff like this so that you have something just in case. Another thing that I even found at the gun store, because I'm licensed to carry, this is bear repellent. It actually is stronger than mace. And you can buy this from your local camping and supply stores, as well as, again, I got mine at the gun store where I go to the range. You spray that on somebody, you have time to move. I hope that I've been able to share my personal experience as well as some techniques, some tips, some things that I want you to know with you to help you to remain safe. Don't forget fire. Don't forget the power in that word. Don't forget protect your equipment. Your security is important. Don't look like a victim. Save all the fancy jewelry and the big diamond rings and the flashy cars. Save that for the closing. Don't wear that stuff. Wear comfortable, flat shoes. Things that if you need to get up out of those shoes and run, run. It's important that you go home, like I said, every night, the same way you left. I care. The National Association of Realtors care. The Chicago Association of Realtors and the Illinois Realtors. We all care. You are in this business because you want to earn a living and help others. Don't be a victim. Thank you for spending this time with me today at this office hours with Lanora Realty or Realtor Safety. I thank you all for spending your time with me. I look forward to seeing you on the very next live. Ta-ta for now.